fans and Who-Dats from all over the world. It's time for the Bayou Blitz. With your host, Bob Rose.
Good evening, New Orleans Saints fans of the NFL, and fans of the Bayou Blitz. We would like to welcome you to 2019, a brand new calendar year, but we hope some continued excellence from not only our New Orleans Saints, but I also hope we can give you some continued excellence from our show here at the Bayou Blitz. I am Bob Rose, one of your co-hosts, and joining me as my partner in crime and a year older himself recently, Mr. Kyle Mosley. How are you tonight, Kyle?
I'm doing great, and Who-Dat Nation, happy, no, I got to do it like Eddie. Merry New Year! So, look, guys, I wish you a very happy New Year, abundant blessings upon all of you guys, great health and great prosperity to you, the Who-Dat Nation, as well as your families and our New Orleans Saints.
It's definitely been an exciting time and an exciting calendar year, and I echo your sentiments. I hope everybody listening out there, you and your family members, had a terrific Christmas and a very happy New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and for continued excellence in your own lives. We want to thank you, as always, all you guys, for your support for our show. Kyle, you and I have just completed not our full year of doing the Bayou Blitz, but our first calendar year. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited for what we have coming up next.
Yeah, definitely, man. We get to see our boys in the black and gold make their trek onto Atlanta. So it's going to be great to see these guys on their route there. But also we have a lot of great guests that's going to be a part of the broadcast for 2019. And we have one in the studio with us today. And Bob, I'll let you do the announcement.
You broke up a little bit on me, Kyle. I apologize.
Okay. Well, I was saying we have a special guest in the queue with us today. I'll let you do the introduction.
Yes, indeed. And joining us, one of our close friends and former New Orleans Saints great and Super Bowl champion to help us break down what to expect from the playoffs, former Saints linebacker Lonn Dunbar. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thanks again for having me.
Oh, man. Welcome to the show, Lonn.
I appreciate it.
How's everything?
We hope you and your family had a great holiday season, and certainly are grateful for any time that you take out of your busy schedule to join us. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. We had a great time. I was actually in New Orleans for the Steelers game and spent time with my family and stuff like that, so it was amazing. I had a great time.
Awesome. How's everything in Syracuse right now?
I live in Miami, actually, but
okay.
Syracuse is cold. It's cold. Spoke to my mom earlier today. It's freezing up there. So, but I live in Miami, Florida.
Okay, well, good. I know it's nice nice weather down there. I spent Orlando for Christmas time, so man, I know it's pretty nice weather for you guys.
Oh yeah, I'm in a t-shirt today. I'll probably be in shorts tomorrow.
Awesome.
So, yeah, we're fine.
Now, guys, there's no sense rubbing it in. I'm standing up here in my kitchen, and it's 40 degrees outside, and I'm already looking forward to May and June weather up here.
Oh man.
So you know more than the majority of our fan base what it's like, what these New Orleans Saints players and coaches are going through right now. The Saints, of course, just ended a spectacular regular season by essentially playing their junior varsity unit against Carolina, getting some extra rest for those starters and things like that. But, I mean, you were on a couple of 2009, unfortunately, you were injured down the stretch. But you were on also on the 2010 and 2011 playoff teams. Tell us how much preparation changes between a regular season contest and now that they're getting ready for the postseason.
Oh, the focus changes. There's a lot of preparation. I mean, obviously in this case, these guys have 2 weeks to kind of get their bodies together, get their minds together, be able to watch some tape of, the two opponents that they have a chance to play. But the focus is just something that's completely different from the regular season. You can almost tell every guy is just lasered or plugged in, and he's ready to just go out there and play on Sunday and make sure they get to the next round. So the focus is what I would say is the biggest difference from the regular season to the playoffs. Once you get in the playoffs, it's win or go home, and guys don't like to go home. I know that much.
Oh, for sure. Now, as a player, and you've kind of experienced both sides of this, assuming you're healthy going into the playoffs, how do you feel about the bye and the extra week to kind of rest your body? Or if you feel like you're in a zone, do you just want to keep going out on that field week after week?
No, the bye is what you want. Once you get a bye, you basically, one, you get home field advantage. Two, that's one less game you have to play to get to the Super Bowl. So those two factors, and you certainly want to bye for the rest, home field advantage, and a shorter road to the Super Bowl. So every guy every team is hunting for that number one or number two seed, and then once you get it, it's more or less, let's take a deep breath, let's understand that we have a little downtime, but let's make sure we're focused and know that we have a mission on hand, and it's not going to be easy to do. So, we kind of we took a little bit of a break. Guys got some rest, but we were back in that office almost every day, back in those locker rooms every day, just watching film and trying to get better and see who we're going to play and coming up with game plans and things like that. It was just intense.
Well, I read somewhere that Sean Payton, during those times, he usually likes to get you guys to work on technique or kind of work on some things that were kind of missing during the regular season.
Yeah, so you spend that whole first week. So this week, while these teams are practicing, things like that, they're getting practices in. They're probably not padded practices, but they're focused practices where you're just getting back to the basics. Some of the things that you were doing at training camp, whether it's footwork, technique, hand placement, drops, zones. Your coaches are doing a lot of self-scouting, just trying to make sure guys are just, dot their I's and cross their T's in terms of their technique and play calling and things like that. So, it's a work week. It's a work week. It's not as hard on the body, but it's definitely pretty hard on the mind. And guys are just trying to get a little better than they were last week, knowing that these games count a lot.
Now, how much does playoff experience and veteran experience matter going into the postseason? You guys, your Saints teams went for 3 straight years, 09, 10, 11. How much of a difference was it the second or third time you had been through that?
So for me, it was a big difference, but I was on veteran teams when we first went. And when you're a young guy on a veteran team, you not even kind of, especially in New Orleans, you just follow the older guys. So whatever the older guys are doing, that's what you're doing. The older guys are in at 8, you're in at 8. The older guys are working out late, you're working out late. I really don't have I really can't give you from a young guy's experience because I literally just followed the old guys. But I think playing in a playoff game and having a veteran team like New Orleans has is certainly something that I would rather go into a game with, simply because these guys have been there before. Whether it's win, lose, or draw, whether you're in a tight game, whether you're in a blowout, whether you're behind by 2 or up by 3, whatever it may be, most of these guys have been in that game before, and they've been in that situation before. And I will always rely on a guy who's been in this situation, who's been in that fight, more than I'll rely on some new kid off the block.
Now, your 2010 and 2, when we had you on a couple months ago, I asked you to discount or to recount one of your more painful memories during your NFL career, and number one at the top of your list was your 2010 playoff loss to Seattle, where you guys went on the road. Tell us about how, in 2010 and 2011, I'm sure a very painful loss on the road to San Francisco. Looking back on it, do you feel that you guys were properly prepared and, were just beat by a couple of unfortunate breaks, or did you maybe underestimate your opponent a little bit?
I think there's a combination of both. I think we are certainly properly prepared. I've never played in a game with Greg Williams or Sean Payton, and I wasn't prepared. So I hold fast that I'm certain we were prepared. I just think that we underestimated them, considering they were 7-9 maybe. And I think that we were a little upset about having to fly from New Orleans all the way to Seattle. I mean, I think we won 10, maybe 11 games that year, something crazy. Mm-hmm. And we're on the road as a wild card. I think Atlanta had the first seed or second seed or some crap. And so we were a little upset about going all the way up there, and we were a little bothered about going all the way up there. But there's nothing you can take away from that Seattle team. That Seattle team beat us. They beat us fair and square. We just didn't make plays when it was time to make plays. We didn't tackle well. We didn't cover well. We blew coverages. And this is from a defense perspective. The big play at the end, there's 2 or 3 guys who had them. So it's just situations like that where you catch a team and they're rolling and they're playing at home. They can beat you. That's what the playoffs is about, and that's the beauty of it. That's why we all watch the playoffs. That's why we love the playoffs. So kind of like March Madness. Anything can happen.
No question. Do you feel the difference in playoff versus regular season intensity on the field?
Absolutely. Guys are playing harder. Guys, it's faster. It's more precise. It's crisp. When you're in the playoffs, you're dealing with the top 4 teams, 5 teams or so, and all these guys can play. If they can't play, they wouldn't be there. All these guys have won games. So you're dealing with the best of the best in that situation. So the game is a lot faster. The focus is far more intense than guys are making plays. You're going to get that, from the starting kick to the last whistle. You're going to see a lot of guys making plays on both teams. It's just about who can make the most plays, who can come up with the most stops, and critical stops, and things like that. So I'm pretty sure Sean's going to have these guys wired for something. These guys will be ready to roll.
Now, Lonn, as a defensive player, how important is it to kind of rely on your takeaway ability, especially in the playoffs?
Oh, takeaways are the number one factor in terms of wins and losses. If you're winning a takeaway battle, you're winning games. That's plain and simple. You got to win the turnover, what we call a turnover, a takeaway battle. If you're winning that, you're winning games. Anytime you're plus this or plus that in that field, you're winning. So that's something they're harping on. As a defense, you want to get the ball, you want to take the ball, and then you know this for a fact. If you take the ball away and you hand that ball back to Drew Brees, pretty good chance there's going to be 7 points on the board. And you get a couple of those, and then your defense gets to pin their ears back. Cam Jordan gets to rush the passer, what he wants to do, and interceptions start happening, and fumbles and things like that. Some of the good things happen when you're up 14 points, and they're in 3rd and 10, and they got to throw. Good things just start happening. And that to get to that point, you have to, win early in downs, and you have to get takeaways and get turnovers. So I know they're harping on that. That's something that's been a New Orleans special since 2009. So if they can do that, they can do some things like that with DA. I know he's preaching it. If they can do some things like that and come away +2 in that turnover battle, it's going to be a blowout.
Now,
like you guys said, I'm sorry, Kyle, go ahead.
Okay. You played special teams as well, and everybody knows that bell ringer you did for block for Reggie Bush against the Vikings, man. Being on special teams, are the calls more conservative in the playoffs versus regular season?
No, not at all. One, we know Sean will do an onside in a Super Bowl game, so anything's possible with this guy. But no, the game is kind of played the same in special teams. It's all about field position and situational. Whether you're rushing a punt, whether you're hold up, whatever it may be, it's just all about situational. And Sean kind of plays that game with his special team coordinators. Just letting you know that we want to come after him in these situations, or we just want to get a good return, or we want the ball on the right side of the hash, things like that. Like Sean is just very precise and a step ahead of the game when he's playing, when he's doing things like that. So I know he's going to have that special teams humming, and he's going to be putting the ball in the the right side of the field, or pinning people deep or whatever it may be to give his team the advantage.
Now, you both had talked about how closely teams this time of year are matched up, because you are talking about the best of the best. Basically the last man left standing. So outside of turnovers, matchups, individual matchups or unit versus unit matchups are usually what comes down to a W or an L in these situations. Are there any, or what NFC teams do you see giving the Saints the biggest matchup problems?
It's going to be, for me, it will be one of the two teams they're going to play next. I think if they get past one of these two teams, Chicago or Philly, I don't think anything else is going to be an issue for them. Chicago plays great defense, and they run the ball well. And anytime you're on the road, those are two things you have to do well to win a game. Play the D and run the ball efficiently. And obviously Philly has the playoff experience. Philly has a great defense. They play well. But the kicker with Philly is New Orleans stumped them a couple weeks ago. So it's personal to them. It's a playoff run and all that good stuff, but it's personal to them. So those are two teams that I am more weary of than the others. I think the others are really good teams, but I believe if you catch those guys in a dome, they're not going to be worth much in terms of playing defense and being able to stop New Orleans in that situation. I think those two other teams can do some things well that can hurt New Orleans if they're not playing well.
And you mentioned not playing well. Yeah, the Saints, especially on offense, look like that they struggled a little bit down the stretch, at least compared to what we are used to seeing from this team in years past and even at the beginning of the year. Is there, when you've been watching this team, is there anything that really pops out to you or has popped out to you and made you think to yourself, wow, if they don't get this cleaned up, it's going to be an early postseason for them?
It's just situations where you hurt yourself, where there's penalties or miscues or things like that. Those are the only things that I believe could hurt New Orleans in these situations. I'm not worried about the offense or the defense, honestly, but I'm not worried about the way the offense played over the last few weeks. They're playing against good teams. They're playing against teams that are fighting for playoff spots. They're playing against teams that were fighting for their lives at the time. They're playing against good defenses. Once you put yourself in those situations, and it's week 13, week 14, guys have 13 weeks of tape to watch on you. Some of your tendencies may be popping up every once in a while. Guys tend to play better in those situations. You play the team twice like Carolina has. Those situations just kind of happen, but I'm not worried about, that offense being able to roll come playoff time, come that dome start rocking, touchdown after touchdown, first down after first down, just play after play. I'm pretty sure Sean's going to have these guys ready to play and focused on playing one down at a time and making plays.
Now, when you played your rookie season, right? That's when you guys won the championship.
My what?
Was it your rookie season when you won the championship?
No, it was my second year. My rookie year, we were 8-8. We played Gary Gibbs was the defensive coordinator.
Okay. Okay. So second season. So the Saints went 3 games down the stretch, lost to Dallas, Tampa Bay, Carolina, right? What was Sean's message to you guys right then and there when it was time for the playoffs? What was his message? Main message?
His message was kind of don't drink the Kool-Aid, stay focused. He just wanted us to make sure we realize that it's more about us than it is about anyone else. And we shouldn't, don't get too high, don't get too low, just stay focused, just keep pounding. He had this saying where he was just like, it's like we all have a sledgehammer, and we're just taking turns hitting this big rock, and who knows when it's gonna break. But we all just gonna keep taking turns, hitting it one at a time. It's just more or less just stick together, keep working hard, keep focused on your goals, and that was just something we were able to put together at that time. I know Sean's doing the same thing. I know we're just working to get a goal, and it's just one game at a time, one play at a time, one down at a time. Just stay focused on what you need to take care of, and the rest will take care of itself.
Good.
Now, we all know, that the postseason, the playoffs are a time for the league's stars to shine. And obviously you expect a big performances rather, out of people like Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm interested to see your thoughts on maybe some of the potential X factors on this team. For example, back in your 2009 championship run, Reggie Bush, who of course is an outstanding player anyway, he played some of the best football of his career, those 3 postseason games. What guys do you see on this current Saints roster that seem ready to step it up like that?
I mean, without a doubt, I think Ted Ginn's going to be an X factor in this game. Considering he hasn't played it so long, I think it's going to be maybe a quarter or so before he kind of gets in a groove. But they're going to be able to do some things that are special with him that they haven't been able to do all season long, basically. So I'm almost certain. I feel like he's going to have a big game. I feel like Watson is going to have a big game. It's basically a going out. He's just going to ride his wave and play as well as he can during this time. So I feel like those 2 guys are definitely going to make some wild plays. We already know, Drew's going to do that. Kamara, Ingram, those guys they're gonna show up. I believe those guys are gonna show up. But if I had to pick some wild cards, those would be the wild cards that I pick on the offensive side of the ball.
Like defensively, how big of a difference has Demario Davis made to this defense?
Oh my goodness, man! I love D. I met him. I was coaching in Cleveland with him when they traded him, honestly. And he and I kind of spent some time together in the film room. We watched a lot of tape of just some stuff. And he's a very, very, very intelligent football player. And he plays with a lot of passion, a lot of heart. He is literally the heartbeat of that defense. He plays with a lot of intensity. I love the way he plays. I've always been fond of the way he plays. I think that his presence is a huge factor into why they play well on defense. He's very smart. He knows where to put guys. He knows where to be. He's always doing his job right, and he's making big plays, man. The whole defense is making big plays right now, and it's exciting to see. I was speaking to Cam about this when I was in Pittsburgh, when I was in New Orleans, and I'm excited to see him play again. And I just love watching these guys play. But those 2 guys, I think, are the heartbeat of that defense. And they go where they go, that defense follows.
Is this a championship defense, Joel Lonn? And if not, what do you think might be holding them back?
I think it's a championship defense. They've been playing great for last 8 weeks or something like that. Something crazy, like something, I don't know, holding teams to like 12 or 17, something ridiculous. I can't remember off the top of my head. So I think it's a championship defense. Championship defenses do a few things. They do not give up touchdowns. They'll give up a field goal. They don't give up touchdowns. Championship defense get off on 3rd down, and they force turnovers. And this defense is doing those 3 things for the last 8 weeks or 10 weeks, whatever it's been. So as long as they can continue doing that, that's a championship defense. I mean, honestly, I think that defense is ranked higher statistically than our defense in 2009 was. We weren't very good in terms of total defense. We kept points on the board, but we forced a lot of turnovers. Mm-hmm. And that's what won us games. We forced a lot of turnovers. And I think they're playing better sound defense than us statistically. I'm not sure if I know they're probably not forcing as many turnovers as we did, but as long as they can do those 3 things, I think they'll give themselves an opportunity to play in the Super Bowl and win a championship.
Nice. What are give us, and I know you got to get running soon. I don't know how much longer we have you. How give us your quick playoff predictions. What do you expect to happen through the rest of the postseason?
Well, I think I believe it's going to be New Orleans and the Rams in the NFC Championship. I believe it's going to be the Patriots and who are the Patriots playing? The Patriots are playing the Baltimore. The Chiefs are playing. Chiefs have to play either the winner of.
Chiefs have the number one seed.
They have the number one seed. But they play I can't remember who they play right off the top of my head. I don't think the Chiefs are going to make the AFC Championship. I think it's going to be the Patriots and whoever else is in that. I can't think of the team off the top of my head right now. But I think the Patriots are going to win and go to the Super Bowl. And then I think New Orleans is going to win. I think it's going to be a New Orleans Patriots. That's what I believe. It's just hard to beat Tom Brady at home. I don't think the Chiefs make it out of their first round playoff game. And then if that happens, that means the AFC Championship is in New England, and New England goes back to the Super Bowl. And I think that's the same thing for New Orleans.
Wow.
Tom Brady versus Drew Brees Super Bowl. I don't think anybody could write a better script.
No one could write a better script, and I think everyone's going to be glued to the TV. That is must-see TV right there.
Yeah.
The NFL would be. They would love it if those two teams match up in the Super Bowl. They would love it. It'd be a money maker right there. It's a money maker.
Good stuff.
No doubt. If Drew gets another ring, is he going to step aside? I mean, you know him fairly well. You played with him.
I don't think he's ready. I don't think he's ready to stop playing football. I think if he wins a ring this year, I think he still plays. He still loves it. He's still passionate about it, and I think that. It's hard to walk away when you're that passionate and you're still playing at a high level. I believe that two things happen. Either your train comes to a stop and you have to get off in terms of your career being over, or one day you wake up and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I want to do something else. And the way he plays and the way he enjoys it and the way he smiles, I don't think that he's there. And I don't think he still has the ability to play. So if winning a Super Bowl this year, I think he'll still play. Now, 2 years from now, then he runs up on a Super Bowl, I think he might let it go. But if he wins the Super Bowl this year, he'll be back next year, in my opinion.
Nice. If he isn't, we're going to hold you responsible, right?
Do not hold me responsible. Please do not hold me responsible. No, man, he's still in love with it, man. As long as you're in love with playing football and you're doing it at a high level, I don't see a reason to let it go.
Definitely.
I don't see a reason.
Definitely. Well, Joe Lonn, it's been a pleasure having you with us, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Anytime. We might have to do this for the NFC Championship game.
All right.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I would love to take you off on that. Hey, do you have a second to tell listeners about Prime Sports?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. So I launched an app probably almost a year ago about a fitness app about athletes. There's a few athletes on there: Cam Jordan, Latavius Murray, Malcolm Jenkins. So please join. It's on Apple Store. Prime Fitness Workouts. Please join. I'd love to have you. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you want, and just let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll be happy to let you know how I can make some improvements. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Excellent.
All right, have a good
one.
Thank
you. Not only thank you for for all the memories that you gave Saints fans during your time here, but I mean thank you for being our friend and so supportive and helpful in what we do. Your contributions have been absolutely huge for us, and they're much appreciated.
Not a problem. I appreciate it, and anytime. I'm telling you, hold me to this. If they go to the NFC Championship, I'm back on.
All right.
And I'll make sure I have more time. I'll talk. I'll do the entire show if I can.
Awesome.
You got it. We will circle that date on the calendar.
Sounds good, man.
Thanks, Joe Lonn.
No problem. Yeah, have a good night. I appreciate it.
You too. Take care.
Take care, Joe Lonn.
Thank you. Yep. Take care. Bye.
Good stuff, Bob.
Definitely. And, listeners, if you're just joining us, that, of course, was former Saints linebacker and Super Bowl champion and great human being, Mr. Lonn Dunbar, very good friend of the show. Like he said, if you don't already follow him through Instagram, Twitter, or even Facebook, find him, seek him down, and join his exercise app, his sports app, Prime Sports Fitness. You won't regret it. But we thank you for his time and his outstanding insight. He gave us some great input, Kyle. What do you think?
Yeah, excellent. Behind the scenes, understanding what the teams are going to do, what to expect. I was I wanted to get a little bit deeper into it if we had an opportunity. He said the Philadelphia Eagles is taking this personally, and Malcolm is good friends of his, so I was kind of curious what Malcolm was telling him, and what Malcolm really wants to see if he comes back to the Superdome. So, but I guess we'll have an opportunity to kind of revisit that or see if Philadelphia could be guided into the Superdome after playing. They're playing the Bears, right? Playing the Bears
yes.
This coming weekend. And so, look, you made a good question, and a lot of people have been asking this question. The Saints have three possibilities who could be able to come and visit us in the Superdome. If the Bears win, of course, they're going to go to Los Angeles, but we have Philly, the Seahawks, as well as Dallas. We could be seeing two teams that we played earlier this season and revisit with them and kind of put some spanking on those guys. I apologize. One thing I thought Philly was playing. Philly's playing. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, I'm kind of mixed.
No,
up.
You're right. Philly has Chicago, and
Chicago,
Dallas and Seattle play each other.
So, we haven't played the Seahawks, and a lot of people are kind of giving Dallas the big kudos and thinking they will prevail against the Seahawks. But, Danger Russ is Danger Russ. And the way Pete Carroll has really resurrected that defense to be able to play the way they're playing and the way they control the football on the field is something that I think is going to be problematic for the Dallas Cowboys. I think especially the last half of the season, the Seattle Seahawks has led the NFL in rushing. And, when you come to the playoffs, you look at the Saints, I think we're number one in time of possession, and a couple of these other teams, I know the Rams as well as the Seahawks and Philadelphia, I think they lead as far as the category when it comes to time of possession as well. If you can control that clock, you put more pressure on the other team. And when you put more pressure on the other team, you can possibly bait that team into making some mistakes down the field. What are your thoughts there, Bob?
Oh, no, I couldn't agree more. And you are talking about, like you pointed out, you are talking about an entire NFC playoff field. Most of the teams are right up there, either in time of possession or their ability to rush the ball. Rams, Saints, Eagles have struggled in rushing the ball, but possess the ball well with a controlled passing game. And then, of course, both Dallas and Seattle, like you mentioned, and Chicago has a dynamite running game as well. Seattle seems to scare a lot of Saints fans right now, and I don't blame any of them at all. They have won 6 out of their last 7 games. They gave the Rams, the NFC West Division champion Rams, all they could handle in 2 matchups coming up, just about a field goal short in both games. And Pete Carroll and that offensive or that coaching staff of his has done a great job in remaking a veteran roster, or rebuilding a veteran roster, The Legion of Boom defense is no more. I think all of the major members from that Super Bowl championship team and championship run that they had for 3 or 4 years in a row, they're mostly, if not all, gone. but Seattle has remade themselves into a very opportunistic defense. And then on offense, as you pointed out, they possess the ball well. They have a powerful running game, and they did lead the NFL in rushing. And then you have the ever-dangerous Russell Wilson. He's the wild card, if you'll excuse the term for a playoffs. He's the wild card in the entire playoff field. He's the equalizer. He can make plays with his legs, and not just running the ball downfield, but he can escape pressure and make a big play down the field. To really a Seahawk receiving core that doesn't have any household names, but he makes them into great players with his escapability and his ability to make a broken play into a big one. And I think that Seattle presents a big matchup problem for Dallas, because Dallas is offensively challenged, as we know, from seeing the Saints take the field against them. An extreme talent in Ezekiel Elliott, a very good run-blocking offensive line, but they really struggle in pass protection. And they have some nice names at receiver. And they have the young man that they traded for at midseason. And my God, I can't, Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper had a couple very hot games when he first became a Cowboy, but it's kind of cooled off since. Defenses have shifted their coverage, to bracket him and to put an extra defender on him or two. And as Saints fans, we know what that does to an offense if you don't have another receiver step up and produce consistently, because we've seen it with Michael Thomas and the Saints receiving core. So Dallas has had very little answers now to stretch offensively, and they're sort of inconsistent. So I think Seattle is going to go into Dallas and win the game. But I agree with what you said and what Joel Lonn said. I think that Philadelphia Chicago game might very well be the game of the weekend, because I don't really know. Philadelphia is extremely beat up, but they really picked themselves up and won, I think, 3 straight to finish the year to even put themselves into the playoffs, when most people had them for dead. So they truly do have the heart of a champion. And as the saying goes, the champ is still the champ until you knock them out, and they're still standing right now. They're going to have a tough game to go into Chicago and win. But as Lonn just said, playoff experience means a lot. And Chicago doesn't really have a lot of veteran playoff experience on that roster. And we saw with the Rams last year, everybody said going into the playoffs, the Rams are so explosive and they have a tough enough defense. Well, it was also their first trip for a lot of those young players into the playoffs, and for that coaching staff as well. And the Rams turned out to be one and done, losing to a playoff seasoned Atlanta team. So you can't help but wonder if Chicago and Philadelphia might work itself out to be the same scenario. It's going to be a very interesting, a wild card playoff football, to say the least.
Yeah, and one thing you have to really pay attention to, I think the neutralizing force for Nick Foles is going to be that defensive backfield and the safety play of, what's his name, Eddie, is it Wilson? That young man, the rookie, he's been tremendous at safety for those guys. Mm-hmm. Look, Philadelphia had problems with the Saints when the Saints got aggressive on them, right? And if Mitchell Trubisky does not turn over the ball and you still have an aggressive attack where they could play short ball with the speed of Cohen and those guys, I think that's going to be another part of the neutralizing force against the run of the Nick Foles-led Philadelphia Eagles, man. I don't know what the weather's like. It's not really a big deal with Philadelphia. They play in the cold anyway. But I just believe, man, going into this game, Philadelphia is going to really have some problems with that defense of the Bears. And usually when you have an aggressive defense, they usually do, especially when you have good cornerbacks against Philadelphia, they really serve against how they perform. When Philadelphia beat up on the Rams, one of the reasons why, I think we can always say, and it's really safe to say, the Rams' defensive backfield is suspect. So I just really believe they're going to have some issues with the defensive backfield, and of course, Khalil Mack is going to wreak some havoc, man. So, I only see the winner from Seattle and Dallas being our potential lineup in the Superdome the week after next. I prefer to see Seattle, of course, but I wouldn't mind seeing the Cowboys and whooping up on them and getting some little payback ourselves. Either one. And this is what I told a colleague of mine today. It doesn't matter who comes in and who plays. You still have to play that game because they're professionals as well. Yeah. And how you perform is how you decide to perform. And you can't perform to say, I'm going to only serve my game plan to be Philadelphia-based or Seattle-based or Dallas-based. It has to be New Orleans Saints-based. That's what I believe. And remember how we attacked the Cardinals that year. I mean, it was all about what we wanted to do, impose our will upon that team. Mm-hmm. And the defense, that next game against the Vikings, the defense imposed their will against that team and caused critical turnovers with Adrian Peterson. I think he fumbled 3 times in the game, Yeah. And then you have that critical bonehead turnover from Favre, Well, thank you very much, Mr. Favre. So that defense really was opportunistic, and the Saints are going to have to really play opportunistic defense again, whoever it is, if it's the Rams, anybody who comes, Rams or Chicago, it doesn't matter. I think that NFC lineup, all of these teams have the opportunity to really do some damage to one another and neutralize one another with either speed on defense or the turnover potential on defense or the playoff experience that you mentioned as well.
Yeah, and you bring up a terrific point too. The New Orleans Saints went 13-3 and earned the number 1 seed for a reason. And that reason did not have anything to do with trying to get cute against whomever they were playing against. They went out, they were successful because they went out there and they imposed their will. Of course, they tailored their weekly game plan to the opponents that they were playing. Sean Payton especially has always been a master offensively at that. And defensive coordinator Dennis Allen has been a terrific against making in-game adjustments against whatever opponents that they were playing week to week. So coaching staff preparation and adjustments are going to be key throughout this playoff game as well. But I do agree with what you said. Yeah, there's no reason to shift away from who you are and what you did to be 13-3 in the first place. And I think that right there is probably the mark of an experienced team, a team and a coach that's been there before. Perhaps some of the mistakes that young coaches and young and experienced players make is going into a game like this thinking we have to be something different. We have to come up with something completely shocking in order to win this game. Well, no, not necessarily, because again, the Saints were 13-3 for a reason, because they lined up and they beat the man across from them and they beat the unit across from them. And I don't think that these guys are too experienced and too well versed to stray too far away from that. Like we said, they'll tailor, whomever their opponent is going to be for this divisional playoff round. They'll tailor their game plan and put in a few wrinkles on each side of the ball for them, but they're not going to change who they are.
Yeah. Rewatch the Dallas game. But then also, if you watch snippets of the Vikings, Philadelphia, and Rams game, that was proof right there. Those 3 games, Philadelphia, Rams, and Vikings, where we said we're going to impose our will. Okay? Then I think we went into that Dallas game tentative. Almost like we're not going to impose our will. We want to see what you guys are going to do. And you look at that game plan. Now, also, correct me if I'm wrong. I know defenses and you have enough tape you can be able to make adjustments, but I still feel down the stretch we kind of were playing to the other guy more than the way we can be able to play the game. Now, I know everybody wants 30, 40, 50 points to be put on the board, but realistically, I think controlling the football is going to be the key, and I really want to see how well our team comes out and runs the ball. That's going to be the critical thing right there. How well can Kamara as well as Mark Ingram, and please, Angry Mark, be a part of the whole playoff series here, be able to really do well against these teams. And now, I was in the Superdome on this past weekend and against Carolina. That was a horrible showing from that defense. And really, we had most of the starters in playing, right? I don't know if these guys were reading the press and thinking that Kyle Allen wasn't going to do anything, and we just had the game won. But a guy who was pretty much brought in off the street a couple of weeks ago, he really came in and was really impressive. Now, what was concerning to me is how many times they allowed him to leak out. And I was wondering who was the responsible parties that should have been on him. Was it the linebacking core that missed it, or was it that I saw a couple of times where the defensive ends overcompensated and they got beat, and he was able to get free from time to time. I think it was like 3rd and 10, and he picked up like 12 yards in our red zone. It was just crazy to me to see the poor play, as well as how Eli Apple and P.J. Williams, they can, when we were getting them off the field on 3rd down, these guys made some critical mistakes in their defensive play as well, man. So those are some of the things I know Sean is going to correct and work on these guys. They got to get their hands around. They got to get their hands off the guys. They got to get their heads around when the ball is coming, so it's not a PI. And those things, and I was just thinking, man, we're week 17, Eli Apple. When are you going to get this down, man? Because you can't do it against the receivers from Philly. You can't do it against the receivers from anybody that's in the playoffs. Let's just, Baldwin would take advantage of that. Lockett would take advantage of that. And I just think too many times they just let two guys those crossing routes was tricking them up, and the bunch plays was still tricking them up. And something's got to be done about this, man. And that's the only concern I've had in watching them on Sunday. And it was just, if we're week 17 and we have a 5th string quarterback just looking like he's a Hall of Famer out there, wow, what's going on? But there was one stat that I brought to Barry Hurst's of Saints News Network's attention, and I was looking at the statistics. Davenport had a sack and a half a sack on Sunday, right? But if you look at the whole season, I know he had an abbreviated season due to injury. Every game he had a sack, we won. Every game,
interesting.
Davenport, and he only had 4.5 sacks, but every game he had a sack, we won. Also, he had pass defensed a couple of times this season, and I wonder, Okafor versus Davenport, And I'm pretty sure I know what Sean is going to do. That first few series, he's going to probably have Okafor in there, to be conservative, right? But Davenport really needs to be more, and I saw him doing it against Carolina. He was more aggressive, and he was trying to, after he got lathered up a little bit, you saw him putting more pressure on them. What's your opinion there, Bob?
I would love to see Davenport on the field more. I think you're right. Sean is going to open the game up with a veteran that he has a long-time confidence in with Okafor, which is, hey, that's no disrespect against Alex Okafor. He is one heck of a player, and he has had one heck of a football season. But I think Davenport has shown the signs of being an absolute difference maker along the edge. And he was really shaping up to be exactly that before he was sidelined with his foot injury. And it's taken him a few weeks to get back into to round back into the form that he was showing before he was sidelined. But I agree with you. From what I've seen of him in the last couple of weeks, he looks like he's there. He's not putting up big sack totals, but he has been there a lot. Now I missed the Panthers game, at least the television broadcast. I listened to the majority of it through the radio, through the eyes of Zach Street and Deuce McAllister. But it sounded like Davenport was just a step away or a half a step away from making a lot of plays. And the week before against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he spent a lot of time in the Steelers' backfield. He had one heck of a game. It won't show up on the stat sheet, but I think he pushed Roethlisberger into at least 3 or 4 hurries or sacks by teammates that I can think of. So I think that he could be. We talked about potential X factors when Lonn Dunbar was on with us. I think on the defensive side of the ball, if Davenport is given the snaps, I think that he could be one of those X factors and really step up and make a few key plays on third downs, or like you said earlier, Kyle, force opposing quarterbacks into critical mistakes.
Yeah, definitely, man. Look, the speed and his athletic ability is the key. And that's why if we get an opportunity to play the Rams, that's going to be critical. If we have the opportunity to play even the Bears, that's going to be critical, because those two quarterbacks tend to run, and as well as Seahawks if we have an opportunity to play them. So Davenport is, and the Dallas Cowgirls as well. But, Dak has been staying in the pocket a little bit more the second half of the season, and people recognize that. But against New Orleans, he did try to break free a few times, right? But I just believe we're going to need his athletic ability when it comes to some of the faster offenses that are out there, and especially you have a guy like Coyne. If he's coming around the corner at you, I'd like to see his matchup versus, Jordan does a very good job, but still Okafor will not be as fast getting to those guys if they're coming around on the sweep. That's all I'm saying. One thing that was also of note that was kind of interesting to me was the play of Dwayne Washington. I know he had over 100 yards, but what I saw in Dwayne Washington was some flashes that were kind of a change of pace type of flashes here and there, and he had good vision. That's what was so surprising to me. When after that first few series he was in the game, his vision increased and his ability to recognize where the holes were coming. He did a very good job. One thing that concerned me with that offensive line was Pete. And Unger did fairly well, but Pete was, concerning. And I know he had those guys who were coming off the street in Newton and Lucas, right? So it wasn't like they had their best offensive line out there, but still, Pete with the reaching from time to time, that's not going to bode well against a guy like Mack or whomever else that's going to come toward Drew Brees. So, and Lawrence, and if he gets a chance to face him. But, those are just some of the things that I saw from our line, and I do think the bye week is going to help us out. It's going to help with Bushrod. It's going to help with Armstead, right? And, Walford as well. So those guys get to rest, get to be a little bit more healthier. I was listening to Deuce, and I know I'm talking a lot, guys. I'm sorry. But I was listening to Deuce McAllister and Bobby Hebert and those guys talk on WWL, and they said the bye week really helps a team like the Saints become fresher. Oh, and Scott Shanley also, he mentioned this. It helps a team to be fresher, quicker, especially probably not that first quarter, but down the stretch versus a team that played the week before, probably may come off an emotional win. And I thought that was interesting, man. What if that Bears-Eagles game get real tight and the Eagles are able to prevail, right? But it's an emotional win. Will they be ready to come into the Superdome off an emotional win, right?
And I think that those are great points. I mean, we saw even with the Saints last year, and this is one of the reasons why we've been talking all year, why it was so important for this team to get one of the top two seeds and therefore earn a bye. The Saints had an outstanding season last year too, but they fell just short of earning the number 2 seed. They came into the playoffs, I believe, seeded number 3, hosting the Carolina Panthers in a wild card playoff game. Now, of course, New Orleans won that game, but it was extremely emotional. I think the final score was closer than the game actually was, but it was still a battle, and a battle against a division rival in that case. And the Saints, who were already beat up on the defensive side of the ball last year, sustained a couple more injuries and came really limping into that divisional round playoff game against Minnesota. Now, we all know how that game ended, but because of the way it ended, what some people forget is the Saints did not get off to a good start at all. And I think after that first quarter, well, really after the first half, the New Orleans completely outplayed the Vikings in that second half. They regained momentum, and just really, if they wouldn't have started the game out so poorly, the game actually probably would not have come down to that miraculous play to Stephon Diggs that sent New Orleans into defeat. But there's a lot to be said for what these teams are, what these other 4 NFC teams are going to be facing in this weekend of playoff activity, while teams like the Saints and the Rams, who are 2 seasons playoff veterans, by the way, get to rest a little bit more, get to come into their first playoff game with fresh legs, and in the case of a 39-year-old quarterback, a fresh live arm. And I think that none of that can be stated too much or overstated about how important that is. That's not to say that they're going to overlook anybody that would be coming into to the Louisiana Superdome 2 Sundays from now. But that is to say that whoever that they're facing, whoever comes into that dome, faces a number of distinct disadvantages. On the road, playing a fresh opponent, the star power is, I think goes without saying. But I think, and a lot of people aren't talking about this week, how important it is to have Drew Brees and his 39-year-old body get that 2 extra weeks of rest. And I think that could propel him into one heck of a play. Let's not get ahead of ourselves because they still have to play one game at a time. but the situation sets themselves up perfectly for a real strong, sustained playoff run.
Yeah, it does. You look at a lot of the situational plays for the Saints. Typically, I was looking at the regular season. When the Saints start off the game, sometimes they use 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end when it's 1st and 10, right? And the Saints rank on 1st and 10 in that set. They have lined up 163 times, and they have gained 8.17 yards every time when they have those 3 guys out. And that's number 1 in the NFL, right? So why am I saying that, Kyle? Well, I'm glad you asked. The key to me is when you have teams like Dallas, Seattle, and the Rams, as well as not Philly, but the Bears. Fast teams on defense. The 3 wideouts help you against those type of teams. Does it put more pressure on Drew? Yeah, it can. But that's our bread and butter right there. Now, when we have like no wide receivers and we're 0, we're last in the league when it comes to that. And when we focus mostly on the tight ends, because then teams are kind of saying, well, we know the Saints are going to run the ball. And majority of the time, that's what they're doing. They're running the ball. When it comes to the second down, I think the Saints have to position themselves to have at least 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4 versus 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 7, right? And if they do have 2nd and 7, they've got to pick up at least 3 to 4 yards, get closer. So I think it's going to be. I don't know if we're going to have. We need to take more chances with Ted Ginn coming back to the lineup, right? But I think against these other teams, and that's what we were not able to do with these fast linebackers like Van Den Esch and those guys, is that we weren't able to take those matchups and use them to our advantage. But what the Giants did to the Cowboys this last weekend, they just took those linebackers out of the equation most of the game. I was surprised. And I think the Saints need to look at how they were able to utilize their backfield, which was not greater than our backfield, right? And really put some pressure on those defensive backs as well as those linebackers. So that's just some of my thoughts, Bob. I know we can go through a whole bunch of permutations here and there on what the Saints are going to do, but I just think, man, I'd rather see the team come out, just like we said earlier, play your ball instead of worrying about what the defense is going to play, and then make your adjustments if necessary. Don't adjust first. Just play your style of ball, Mr. Sean Payton, and worry about what's going to happen later. Because I think if we go tentative in these games at the beginning of the games, it's going to be a problem. That's all I'm saying. We can't be tentative, not in our dome, and not having the crowd to our advantage as well. Okay.
Yeah, and I would be absolutely shocked if they came out anything but hyper aggressive, because again, all these guys know, and Coach Payton certainly knows what these games in the Superdome usually turn into if the Saints get out to an early 10, 12, 14-point lead. It usually rides the momentum into a rout in favor of New Orleans. So they know that. And these guys have gone out of their way to make a statement to the rest of the league all year. And that statement has been, okay, we're more than just Drew Brees. We're more than just a pretty passing attack. We can beat you up in the trenches. We can cause turnovers defensively. You're not going to run the ball against us. We're a more physical team than you, and they've won a lot of games this year by just that. I don't have the statistic right in front of me, but I kind of outlined it in my article through the Canal Street Chronicles this afternoon. The Saints have won a number of games this year where Drew Brees has thrown for barely over 200 yards or under, and that tells me that they're winning the game on the defensive side of the ball, and they're winning the game in the trenches. They no longer need number 9 to play at an elite, perfect Hall of Fame level to have a chance to win. Now, it'd be nice. They did struggle down the stretch a little bit passing the ball, and I think a lot of what their recent struggles have been over the last month or so have been injuries and players nicked up along the offensive line. And you mentioned Armstead and Bushrod. Having one and certainly both of those players back to full health, along with Andrew Speed and Larry Warford, that's key because we know what the Saints have been able to do with a healthy starting 5 along the front. There's nobody that's been able to touch them, not even close.
Right.
I don't care what kind of defensive front.
Right.
So it all starts up front and what their health is going to be coming into this one after an extra weeks of rest.
Right. The trenches. How well we're able to play in the trenches defensively as well as offensively. So the lines are going to be our key. Which line has the best performance? Which line is able to neutralize their best player? Can we neutralize like a Khalil Mack like we did with Darnold and Sue, right? Like we did with Michael Bennett, with Philadelphia and Barnett and those guys. So the offensive line having an extra week to be able to rest their bodies is very, very, very important. Very important.
Mm-hmm. So Kyle, we have next Wednesday, of course, to preview whoever the Saints divisional round opponent is going to be. So with that having said, we obviously have this weekend of no New Orleans Saints football. Everybody's going to be sitting around watching the NFC, both AFC and NFC wild card playoff matchups. You tell us, who do you think the Saints' first round divisional round opponent is going to be?
Seahawks.
I do too.
That's my thought. I think it's going to be the Seahawks. Wouldn't surprise me if it would be the Eagles, but I really believe it's going to be the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and I think we both said earlier, we both intimated anyway that we thought that Seattle was going to come into Dallas and beat Dallas on the road. I just like the matchup better in Seattle's favor. As far as Chicago versus Philadelphia, I'm really having a hard time with that one. I'm glad nobody is forcing me to lay any money down. But I agree with you. I think Chicago has had a very impressive season. They have underrated talent on both sides of the ball. Everybody knows defensively, but they have a couple offensive playmakers too, even though they're somewhat conservative offensively. Philly is just too beat up. This run has to come to an end for them at some point, you would think. They're running out of bodies. And I think that Chicago just has too much, is just too powerful defensively for Philadelphia to make that much of a difference on the offensive side of the ball. And the majority of the Eagles' injuries are in the secondary and on the defensive side of the ball. So I can see Chicago scoring just enough points to advance in this one. It might not be pretty, and like I said, nobody run to Las Vegas with my prediction on this one, but I do think that Chicago is going to edge Philadelphia, which of course means that the New Orleans Saints and Seattle Seahawks, according to Mr. Kyle Mosley and myself, will have yet another postseason battle for supremacy. But if that indeed happens, we'll have plenty of time to break down some of the disappointing historical matchups between these two in the playoffs.
Right. Look, we are the best team against the run. They are the best running team. Everybody we faced who was the best running team at that time, we neutralized. We neutralized Dallas. We neutralized everybody. I mean, we could have easily won that Dallas game if it wasn't for a few mistakes here and there. We neutralized the Ravens, remember? So I believe that our matchup against Seattle, if we're able to make Russ throw the ball, that's going to be the key for us to win. Now, he's dangerous, and he can be able to make plays with his legs. We've seen that before, but the last time he came into the Superdome, we kind of neutralized him then. So I just believe that it doesn't really matter which one of those three teams come. We just need to just play our football and we'll be okay. Now, I will say this on the AFC side, and I'm just mentioning this because of what Lonn said. I think the Patriots are going to have their time if the Houston Texans win. They're going to have a dangerous team on their hands. Because if the Texans win and go up to New England, it's not going to be as easy as people think it's going to be. And I know the Texans were your preseason favorite.
Yes, sir.
I just got to say it, man. I think Clowney and JJ is going to be too much. And I'm pretty much know JJ is going to be a handful. So, and Brady, I just don't like what I see as of late. I know he has a week to kind of rest, and Giselle can get into him and put him on the right track like she usually does, man. But I don't know, man. I just see the Texans, if they can escape Indy, I think that's who they're playing. I think they can really put some damage on those guys up there. I'm not quite sure if they can handle Kansas City, but it won't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if they did. So,
and that's just it. Like you pointed out, and like I patted myself on the back for a couple of times this year. Houston, New Orleans over Houston was my Super Bowl pick at the beginning of the year. So I'm certainly not going to back off of that now. But as I watch the AFC side of the things of the playoff picture unfold, I'm worried about the Texans this weekend against Indianapolis because I think that the Colts are a bad matchup for Houston, and I think even though that game is in Houston, it wouldn't surprise me if Indianapolis went out in there and upset them. I think that this might be Houston's toughest test because I agree with you. I think if Houston goes on the road, if they win that game, then they would be going on the road to New England. But I like that matchup. I do not like the way the Patriots are playing. I agree with Lonn. I think anytime the New England Patriots are in the postseason bracket, it's like Duke in college basketball. You're kind of out of your mind if you predict against them. So you just kind of leave it alone and wait and see what happens. But I think that Houston is set up to beat a team like New England and the way that they are right now. And I have zero confidence in the playoff abilities of either Kansas City or the San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers, the Fighting Phillip Riverses. I have zero confidence in either one of them. The Ravens can't throw the ball to save their lives. They'll beat you up defensively, and Lamar Jackson is the next Michael Vick, the human joystick in the backfield, which always makes him dangerous. So I'm not ready to back off of my AFC prediction, but I think that side of the conference is absolutely wide open. There's not a single team that stands out to me. So it'll be interesting. I'll be glued to the TV this weekend to see how the AFC first round playoff matchups round themselves out as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it became AFC championships with the Texans and the Ravens or Chargers. That that's what I see, man. Look, and one last thing, and guys, a lot of people have talked about the MVP, and I've made it very clear. I know Drew Brees should be the MVP. I would prefer him not to be the MVP because just like you saw with the Heisman Trophy winners, it's just that something happens. The MVPs don't win the Super Bowl, and the Heisman Trophy winners don't win the national championship. So I'd rather him not win. That's my opinion, not to say that he is not worthy because he has a better winning record, number one. And I remember back in, it was 2011 when when Peyton won. I think that's
Rodgers. It was Rodgers.
Rodgers, and people say, well, Rodgers had a better statistical performance, but the year that Peyton won over Brees, I think that was 2009, right? That he was awarded, and Brees beat him in the Super Bowl, right? They said is because Peyton had a better winning record. So what's it going to be, writers? Is it the better winning record that you're looking at, or is it the stats, guys? Because a guy who throws 74.4% breaks his own record again. It's just, and has the best winning record in the National Football League, right? What do you guys want? I don't get it. I know the kid has done great. I think he's the most valuable offensive player, but has he really elevated the rest of his team? Has he done it like Brees, even on his not so great day, still be able to win those games? Well, not on Patrick Holmes's so great games or day. He has not been able to do the same, right?
Nope. He's been a turnover machine in big moments, honestly.
Yeah.
The kid has been a dynamic playmaker, and I think he's going to be a very, very good quarterback in the NFL, and you can't take away from the season that he's had. And you just ran down Brees' list. Some of these national talking head morons are speaking like, well, you shouldn't give it to Brees, based off of career achievements. This is for a single season. Well, and no kidding, goofball. Look, highest completion percentage in NFL history. Just 8 yards shy of a 13th straight 4,000-yard season, which, by the way, would have extended his own NFL record. 32 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. He still threw for over 300 yards 6 times. Used the eye test. He physically willed his team to victory over Atlanta in the first on the road early in the season, running for 2 touchdowns, plowing over 3 Falcon defenders on one of them. He keeps eluding the rush at a 25-year-old man's with a 25-year-old man's athleticism in a 39, almost 40-year-old body. He could still make all the throws, and he can do it consistently. He breaks you down like a computer. You ask any NFL defender what quarterback that they don't want to face, and Drew Brees will be, if not the first name mentioned, the second name. If that's not an MVP to you, I don't know what is.
Yeah, well, look, man, 3rd and 20 to kind of go and win the game, and he finds Ginn for 25.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, wow. When I was watching that game, I was like, wow. Think about that. And then I look at NFL Network, and I saw how they downplayed the whole game. They had more Steelers highlights than Saints highlights. It's crazy, man. You look at at how the media is really portraying New Orleans, and they're saying, "Oh, Patrick Mahomes, he's got all these great stats, and he's flipping the ball behind his back and doing Magic Johnson tricks." And I'm like, okay, still, who has the better record, guys? And that's what is getting lost in the whole translation of this. But anyway, that's just my thought. Well, that's all I have to say, Bob. I feel like Forrest Gump. That's all I have to say about that. Well, hey, Bob.
No, I'd say we covered a bye-week playoff matchup in every angle that we can, and like I said, we'll have plenty of time in next week's show to roll through whoever the Saints' first-round opponent will be. In the meantime, folks, keep your eyes on what's going to unfold through the NFC wildcard playoff round, because these are going to be some good football games. And despite what we're saying about the number 1 and number 2 seed getting the bye and how important it is, remember how many teams have made and or won the Super Bowl, having to do it through the wild card playoff round. So every single one of these teams on the field, this week are a threat to win a Super Bowl championship. Keep that in mind.
The parity is very clear, and you can make a case for every team that is going to show up. You can make a case against every team that's going to show up, right? But the parity, I believe this season is kind of very close with all of these teams being represented, especially in the National Football Conference. So, Bob, tell everybody how they can follow you on Facebook, media, social media, media, and media.
Well, one of these times we'll just give you guys my address so you could just come and hang out with us here.
Hey, that's
here up north. But I can be found on Facebook, Bob Rose, and on Twitter as well at BobbyR2613. And of course, my work through the Canal Street Chronicles can also be found both on Facebook and Twitter. The Facebook site is Canal Street Chronicles, and Twitter is at Saint CSC. And please, folks, if you're not already a member of our Bayou Blitz Facebook group, please join us. We are literally, I think, 6 members shy of 1,500 members, and this group has only started up in August. So this is a fast-growing group. I think everybody is having a lot of fun. We distribute not only our pieces and our Bayou Blitz shows, live shows, and replays, but we distribute Saints news as we hear it or as we understand it as well. So it's a great place to keep tabs on breaking news. And I hope everybody is having fun with it. So if you're not already a member, please send a member request, or encourage a family member or friends that's looking to keep up with their New Orleans Saints. If they're not a member, send them our way. I think you'll have a lot of fun. And Kyle and I both thank you and love you both all for your support and your generosity in helping us build this thing up.
Definitely, guys. And don't forget, you can always check out Bob and I online at www.spreaker.com/Saints News, or you can check us out on saintspodcast.com, as well as many of the other podcasts in the Who Dat Nation, like Deuce Wyndham and the Who Dat Confessional, as well as our boys Sean and Alan with the Under the Dome podcast as well. They're listed on there, so you can check those guys out as well. Don't forget, you can also go to www.saintsnewsnetwork.com and read all of Barry Hurst's 50 million articles that he puts out per day. I don't know. He's a machine. He's an animal. He's too great. So watch Mr. Hurst's, and he puts out some great content, original content from the mind of Barry Hurst's. And you can also check out our social media efforts at Saints News on Twitter, Instagram, as well as on Facebook. All right, Saints fans and Who-Dats, we have a bye, so don't let your exuberance and care for our New Orleans Saints wane. Look, and Bob, I need to just say this, man. It was so funny in the Superdome as this team is down by like 30 points. People were still partying and having a great time in the fourth quarter, guys. I was loving it, and saying I was bragging on you guys to these Houstonians and letting them know that we know how to enjoy ourselves through the good and bad times. So keep up the great support of the boys in black and gold. And I got to give a shout out to great uncle of ours, HV. He's a Texans fan, and he the day before Christmas he broke his hip, and he's been in ICU ever since. And guys, just be in prayer for him. He's a great sports enthusiast. He lives in Houston. That's the only reason why he's a Texans fan, so don't hold that against him. But let's just keep him in prayer. And he and I share a birthday, December 28th, so just watch over him. He's 89, so just keep him in prayer. And there was something else. I know we had some noted. Kirkwood had a birthday. Sean Payton had a birthday. Deuce McAllister had a birthday as well. So happy belated birthday to you guys. And Saints fans and Who-Dats, this is Kyle T. Mosley with Mr. Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz and Canal Street Chronicles. Bob, you have a great one, man. You stay warm up there, okay?
Oh, you guys have a great one down there too. Hopefully everybody had a great holiday, and we're going to start out the new year in style.
That's right. 2019 is ours, baby. Who-Dat? Y'all take care. We will be back next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central and 8 p.m. Central and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Kyle T. Mosley with Bob Rose. Y'all take care. Bye. Peace.